welcome to the Rental Revenue Builders After Show. All right. So we just did a video talking all about buying criteria, how important it is to establish buying criteria. So now we're going to share our stories, our real life stories about how or our experiences when we did not establish our buying criteria and our experiences when we did establish that buying criteria. So you guys, we can just jump on in. Anybody who wants to go first, what was your experience when you did not when you did not establish your buying criteria? What was the worst experience you had either in a property or some type of investment when you did not establish that criteria?
Well, I'm going through it right now.
Okay.
So it was one of my latter properties. Well, it was midway. It's been about a year, and it's 2 acres. It's a 5,000 square foot home. Numbers made sense, but I kind of fell into the emotional side of it. That's why I was able to kind of talk about it. But how I was able to get into it was because I had a family friend that says, "Hey, I want to have my father-in-law live with us." So I went into searching and trying to put myself in that position. Well, once we ran the numbers, the construction cost, it wasn't going to be within his budget. So then I said, okay, let's go ahead and move to the next thing. And I am in the senior living space, or want to be. That's kind of my passion project. So for assisted livings. Well, not going through your whole criteria of getting 3 bids. Former contractors should know this. Didn't get the 3 bids, didn't get the right proper 6 critical documents you're supposed to. I did hire a foundation company. It was a $45,000 foundation gig that they were supposed to do. Well, this was March of last year when everybody was really busy. So they had subcontractors come out and they messed up my whole foundation. So I have to still do paying the holding costs. I've already on my second loan modification. Alejandro knows about this. So extending my loan, I'm over about $100,000 in cost right now on a non-cash flowing property. So it was a big thing. The biggest thing was I continued to keep buying afterwards before all of this instead of focusing on that one project. So I'm going through the motions right now, but yeah, it's crazy. And I'm going through legal. That's the only avenue right now I have, but it's really cutting into all my other portfolio.
So. Right. Yeah, because now your money is tied up in this property and you need to be able to make some moves and you can't. So yeah. Ooh. Okay. $45,000 foundation and they messed it up. Oh yes, that's a problem.
Oh yeah.
I'm just so impressed. She's just talking through it like, that's so right. Much props to Michele. She's like, that's 100,000 over. Right. Hey, Michele, you get props from me, right?
You know what? When you're going through something, you already know what's been happening. Like Michele has been dealing with this. It's new for us, but she's calm because she's been dealing with this. So that's why.
But there's a lesson there too, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things that I have learned in the process is that you could work through anything, but the education, what we're doing right now, is what can alleviate having to go through some difficult things. But you're never going to get it perfect. Even if you have the coaches and everything, you're never going to get it perfect, but you can avoid a lot of things that we're mentioning here. But I think it's something to be said about her resiliency and your ability to deal with it, because that's part of the business. If anytime you set out to do something great, there's always going to be resistance. And what we're doing here is no difference.
I'm hoping it's going to be the golden ticket. I'm hoping.
There we go.
Story's
not over.
Yeah, we have the tail end of it, but definitely it's something. One of the things I can tell you is no matter what space you're in, because again, I'm a former contractor, but I wasn't a former investor. So you have to play in your lane and you have to be strategic about it. And there's levels into real estate. Just like Ms. Kelly said, I have to focus on this right now and those levels. And that's the biggest lesson I learned is I picked up a property that was over $100,000 in cost in a new market that I didn't build my team yet. Right. So and then I get the person. And now we're at the end of it where we're going to start to do construction. but it's going to take me a little while to be able to gain all that money back. So I'm excited in about 3 years when I can say, okay, it's finally paid everything back and it's even done more. But those are the big lessons that, like you said, you learn, and when you're in real estate, or at least me as an entrepreneur, it's not like, oh, well, here's the keys, take it back, I'm done. You can't. You have to keep going.
Right.
So I'm sure you guys
Trust.
have, I hope you guys have some stories.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I know. I definitely have some stories.
yeah, I
Mar-
definitely got a story. So when you
Go-
talk about, having a team set up and staying in your lane and things like that, I mean, my story came when I was actually, I mean, I've been a wholesaler for, I don't know, 10 years or so. But about 3 or 4 years in, I'm thinking I need to do something a little different. If I'm giving all these properties away, I need to start rehabbing them, right? And then so when you talk about building your team, I wasn't really sure about what the team really looked like when you start buying houses. So I had this great package I thought came across, package of 3 houses. I'll never forget, in a C to D class neighborhood. But the numbers were great, so I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'll go ahead and jump on it, and I paid cash for it. Didn't put a hard money loan on or anything because the numbers are so good. But got into the project, and coming from never rehabbing a house in your life to trying to rehab 3 at one time was not a good situation. I was not in my own lane. And so I got into these houses. I got screwed with the contractors. I got screwed with the city. I got screwed with just about everybody I dealt with in that project. And it was a learning lesson because I was trying to do it all on the fly. I'm trying to go to one house and do stuff, and now I'm becoming a contractor. YouTube University is my favorite place to be at that time. And then you try and do everything on your own, and you forget about what you were doing. I learned from that I spent more money rehabbing. I mean, I lost more money rehabbing because I couldn't get back to what I normally did because I was falling into something that I really shouldn't have been doing. If I was going to take on a project, I should have taken on just one, not three. If I was trying to do that long term, I should have tried to build a team or find something that was a little bit smaller. Because, like you said, once you get into the foundation issues and stuff that you have no clue about,
Mhm.
and people sniff that you have no clue about it, they're going to take advantage of you. And that's what I got taken advantage of when I was doing those 3 houses at one time when I shouldn't have been doing any. That's your host of my life.
What ended up happening with those properties?
It ended up being a savings account. I ended up having those properties for about a year and a half, putting money in, until when I finally actually closed on them. I think a year later, I kind of got rid of all of them. Just like a year and a half later, and then I only lost like maybe $3,000 on the deal, but all the money that I put in, I had finally got back at that time, and so I mean I was broke as heck for that entire year and a half I was working on those houses
Oh
and
yeah.
steady pushing money into them because you got to get past the finish line at that point. You got to pay
Yeah.
back who you need to pay back because your integrity means everything. So you want to basically, because I ended up borrowing money on to finish the project, and like I said, I end up I lost about $3,000 on that deal.
Mm. Mm.
And it's crazy because I think we all have like a similar situation with obviously a contractor that promised to do something right
Oh yeah.
and did not deliver whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of leads me down a path of like, my first purchase that I was just so eager to get into real estate.
Yeah.
I was so eager to make a purchase, and I thought I knew what I was doing, and I wanted to be in the business, and I wanted to just have ownership, right? And I did not have a buying criteria. I just knew it was a great area, up and coming, and I just jumped right in. And the worst part about it is this wasn't even a single family home. This wasn't even a multifamily. Guys, this was a condo.
Oh.
And when you jump into something like that, you don't even have control of what you own. Like
Mm-mm.
you have like maybe, I don't know, 60% control, and then you have to deal with what's called a homeowners association. So in my situation, the cons were I had a no control homeowner association that, controlled everything. I had these special assessment fees that were on top of my regular assessments because the building was extremely old. So, I had a regular assessment of 250, then a special assessment of another 350, right? It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it was a cash flowing asset, but it all just literally blew up once that unit was a garden unit and it was a high flood zone area.
Oh,
The unit just basically flooded on me maybe a couple of
oh,
times. And you guys could, imagine the process of going through insurance
oh.
and mitigation and, kind of just that rebuild and, reconstructing your property back to what it was. In this process, I had to obviously find a contractor. And, again, I was new in the business. I just wanted to really get this done and get a renter back in this space. Found a contractor, but I went with the lowest bid, right?
Duh.
Not even the
Duh.
contractor, right? I went with, a handyman,
The
right?
handyman, right?
And he's just like, look, I can have this done by Monday. And
Mhm.
I was just like, perfect. So, make a long story short, guys, my entire flooring of my condo is horrible. Every time I walk in there, it's like the grout and the grooves are just, you got to have on socks because it might cut your toes. Like that's how bad he laid this floor.
Oh man.
And literally I was just dealing with obviously remodeling and repairing, a unit that continued to flood just due to the zoning that it was in. It was in the high flood zone. So I would say, that was probably my worst snatch. And again, it has appreciated, but the amount of headache is just ridiculous.
Mm,
So do you
wow.
still own that property or did you get rid of it?
So I still own the property. The property has probably close to 100,000 in equity in it. And again, it's one of those situations where I was trying to put it on the market, but earlier on the call we were talking about having the right comps within 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have those comps, it's a bit hard for a realtor to kind of gauge what pricing to go out to market at. So I had to go out and do an appraisal, and I was looking for 299, and the appraisal came back at about 270, which just kind of just it wasn't where I needed to be to go ahead and sell that asset. But my plans is, hey, I want 299 for it, 300, and I want to roll the equity into a multifamily asset. As of now, I have the right buying criteria, right? I know exactly what I need to purchase. So it's been a 5-year hold on this condo, and I'm just hoping and praying that I can get this one sold.
Okay.
Do subject to. Subject to. You could,
Yep,
or just leverage the heck out of the equity on it and just
for
keep it.
sure.
Yeah. And then you don't have to worry about doing a 1031. But there's ways
Yep.
out there. There's ways out there. But yeah, if you do right now, subject to, I'm sure you have a pretty good, decent interest rate on it. And then you could move on and be able to continue. So
Yep. Great strategy.
Yep. Well, I would say for me, it was my first rehab. I didn't know what I was doing. Here I go. I took a course and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do this rehab. It was a small little 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. I got into it with a partner and did not have an agreement with that partner. And it just, I did not have any buying criteria. It was just strictly like, okay, this is a house for sale. We got this hard money loan that I'm approved for. They approved it. We're going to jump in and just do it. We're going to get it done. I guess I was watching maybe too much HGTV as well, thinking that I could just come in and and get a contractor and they're going to take care of everything and it's going to be done. Well, I had issues with my partner because we weren't in agreement on what was happening with the property. So she ended up walking away and I had to end up paying her out before the property was even finished just to get her out of the picture. She really made more money off the deal than I made. I think I probably broke even. I think I broke even because I was able to pay off the hard money lender, but I didn't make a profit. So she definitely made more money than I made. But yeah, that was the worst experience I had. And that experience that taught me like, okay, don't do any more rehabs. And then years later, I jump into another rehab and I hate it again. So now it's official that rehabbing is not for me at all. And I don't want to do it again. Now, if I have to fix up a property and it's just a property that I'm keeping, then that's another story. Even still, I don't want to deal with contractors. That's just a major thing for me. I don't want to deal with contractors. It's just a headache. I expect adults to be adults. You say you're going to do something, I want you to do it, complete it, let me inspect it, and then pay you. Not come to me and tell me you need money before the project is done because something's happening in your personal life. Like, I don't care. I've had that experience recently. So yeah, that was pretty much the worst experience I've had as far as not establishing my buying criteria, not having the right education, and just jumping in and trying to do something. Luckily, I was able to get out of it and pay the hard money lender off. But yeah, that was the worst experience for me. So
Well, you know what they say? They say if they say they got a holler, they done messed up the dollar.
ah
Anytime they be like, I got to holler at you, and you already know, like
yep,
they done messed up the dollar. They,
Credit check for the contractors.
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, I'm not about showing up every day to check on what you say you are supposed to do when I'm paying you money. You're like, this is your business or your job. Do it. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's me.
for me, I had it was I had bought a couple of properties. We had bought like this when I was married. We were on our plan that we were going to buy a property every year, a multifamily, a small 4 or under, and we still didn't know how hard money worked. It was just coming straight out of savings. But we had bought these other properties for, I mean, just basement bargain prices, and we found another one, and we had a contractor, and a good contractor, but in St. Louis we have these old houses, South City, 100-year-old brick, and this house had not had too much work done to it. So he went in and he said, "House would be about 12,000. I think we could get you in there." And again, great guy. I mean, I still work with him now, but again, in St. Louis, old house, we didn't use hard money. I'm just thinking, okay, it's not gonna be that much on the rehab. Let's just go ahead and do traditional, conventional loan. And we got in there, and once he started doing some work, we found out, oh, the stack is messed up from the second floor. So brand new stack. And then it was just one thing. Oh, then it rained one day. And then all this water started getting in the basement. And we're wondering, okay, what's up with that? Drainage system. So now you got to do a whole drainage system. I mean, and it kept just adding and adding. And we just ate up all the reserves. You know that all the reserves, Michelle, that you were talking about? It was nearly 40,000 in the rehab that was supposed to be about 12. So it was just one of those situations where it was just when do you stop the bleeding?
Mm-hmm.
And had I two things. First of all, I probably should have gotten a hard money loan or something like that, just so I would have even more reserves or have more flexibility. But I didn't estimate how much extra it could be on an old home like that. Again, we get excited. It was a great deal. I think we got it for 60,000. So, oh, this is great. Oh, look how big it is. We're going to be getting some good rent, and didn't estimate that if things went wrong, and I think you always have to estimate extra amounts because something's always going to go wrong, especially in an old house. And just going through that experience, eating up all the reserves, and then shortly after got a divorce, that didn't help. So now she ended up getting the property, which was good because it was all fixed, so my ex-wife. So, and then that was the other piece too, is like we had to negotiate who's going to get it. And that's what we ate up all the money fixing it up, but she ended up getting it. But yeah, it's one of those things, understanding what's available. I think that's the key here that listeners and viewers are getting, is that there are different options that you can consider when you go into a deal. Should you get hard money? If you think about rehab money, do you use that as well? Do you have money that you could borrow? I have some of the people that borrow from me have other fund money. So they have other people that give to them that help them do the rehab. So there are a lot of different ways, but do the math, but always estimate and know that there are typically, I've never have done any rehab or any real estate deal where the construction cost was less than budget. It's never happened. So I think you always have to err on, I mean, unless you're Michelle as a contractor might have, if you're an experienced professional, but I've never have seen even the people that borrow from me, it always costs more than they typically budget.
No, even contract, you never know. I mean, just because you have the name contractor, which is, we went through the schooling and I had this, there's so many different trades, right? That you have, you have a better understanding, but you're not going to know everything. And then especially that I'm coming from South Florida, Miami market, that I've done all my construction, and coming to Texas, that 98% of the properties are foundation issues. So it's automatic. You got to put it in your budget. So it's very different. But like you said, I think one of the things that I learned on this was, in the beginning of my career, I was utilizing, which again, 50 different things that you shouldn't have done, right? But utilizing capital from my other businesses to start my real estate, which is okay, but not when I didn't understand hard money. And it's so funny because yesterday I was going through my first HUD statements and looking at the HUD statements and what my rates were and every of that compared to what I know now. Like, I'm like, man, like now I understand hard money. I didn't understand it before, but I would I would get the hard money. And then for construction, I would use my own money because I don't want to lend. I don't want to have more money and I want to have it. Imagine doing that and you're trying to do so many houses. First off, when it's your own money, all right, well, let me just give a little bit more. Let me just give a little bit more. That holla at you kind of, let me give them a reserve kind of. But when you have a private money lender, and it's just all a psychological thing, and if you're ethical and you're using private money, you want to hold on to, you're going to make sure that their dollar is not as spent as much, and you save more money if you really think about it. And that's why now when I put, even if I have cash reserves, I put a private money on it, because it's almost like, oh, well, I said this, so I'm going to stick to this, versus me here, and here, because you're always off budget. So, and I think one of the things is when you're buying, a lot of us, I know I didn't. I was like, I'm not going to get a home inspector. No, I'm not going to pay the $400 or $500 to get it done. And in reality, it's worth it, instead of going and putting the EMD down, a non-refundable for $5,000, and then not getting that back and coming later on with your not knowing. So
that's what I was going to piggyback on, is that one thing that I learned from dealing with a lot of hedge funds is that every one of them they get an inspection on prior to buying. And then they take that inspection and they give it to their contractor to get bids on. So if you have a good inspector that's going to go through the entire house like they're supposed to go through, you can use that as a measuring stick and give that to each one of your contractors. Hey, how much is it going to cost to replace that stack? How much is it going to cost to deal with this foundation? Here are the pictures. Here is the information that came from the inspector. So you can get a budget within a fairly quick amount of time versus waiting to find out later on and spend an extra $10,000, $15,000 that you could have caught way beforehand.
Okay.
I'm gonna use Michelle as a commercial, like that clip she had for hard money. I'm gonna use that clip and use that as a commercial. That was great. She said it better than I could have said it myself.
Yes. All right. So let's flip it and let's talk about our best experiences. So once we determined our buying criteria, what has been the best deals you guys have had? Jump in, whoever wants to go.
I think for me, my best deals were my first 2 deals, and they've always been my cash flowing. And I think it was because I was out in Florida at the time of buying. So I was being very strategic and doing due diligence, and I was virtual and I was sticking to my plan. And sometimes when we're like, oh, we got the first one, we got this equity, we got the second one, oh, we're doing good, then sometimes we kind of fall away from the plan, right? So those have been my first really good ones. And now, like, just with the experience, someone saying, oh, I'm in the fix and flip business and I can get this. I recently walked away from a JV deal because she was very about, this is what's going to be. And I know I'm going to get an 80% LTV. And I'm like, there's not lenders out there right now that are giving that high, like, So my best deals were when I was one deal at a time instead of trying to do 5 at once.
Yep. Yep.
For me, it was the first deal that went through. I had other deals, offers that even one we worked with Marlin that we couldn't find anybody on the note, but it was the first deal. It was 2 4 families. I called on the one, but the owner was in, I think, 80 years old. He was getting out. He just wanted his money, and he said, I want to go to Vegas. He said. And he asked my wife at the time too. I was at work, but he was like, "Can you meet me at this bar or what?" And she was like, he said if I could meet him at this bar or whatever. And I'm like, how much? Like, does he have more property?
Right. Like, what's going on?
My ex-wife was military. I said, I think you can handle it, babe. Like, I think you're gonna talk to him. But yeah, he had more. But we bought 2 because I offered on one, and then he came back and gave me a really good deal. How about if you take 2 for an incredible deal? And I mean, man, it was just, I remember calling. I was still relatively new, so I was calling friends, and then they would tell me. I remember Mark told me, this guy named Mark. He said, "It sounds pretty good." He said, "If you don't want it, though, I'm more than happy to, follow up on it."
So you know it's a good deal.
It's a good deal.
Exactly. He's like, I'm more than happy to follow up if it's too much for you. I certainly can take it.
I guess I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I think the best deal I had, well, the one I still have, and this was actually a deal that came from Marlin. It's a wholesale deal, and it had a tenant in it, and it was already cash flowing. I still have this property. It's in the C-class neighborhood. I mean, it was already some equity in it. That was the best deal I think I bought because, yeah, it's still making me money. And I definitely stuck to my criteria. Okay, we want, this zip code. I had a certain amount of zip codes that I would say, okay, I'm interested in these zip codes, this size property, all of that. And that's what it is. So that has been pretty well for me. It's one of my long-term rentals.
Yeah, I remember that deal because I think we had a long conversation about what exactly you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I presented to the seller. And originally they was like, no, I'm not going to take it. And then for me, it was easy. Okay, well, it's not going to work then. And then they called me back the next day, all right, it'll work. And then we ended up closing the deal.
Yep.
So based off that criteria again. But mine is a piggyback off of Michelle's, that one deal at a time. So after those 3 horrible situations, I was like, Kelly, and I was like, I'm not rehabbing at all. I'm not doing anything. And then so I sat back and decided, okay, doing a bunch of more wholesale deals, kind of following the script of my buyers. Like a lot of them, again, got appraisals, not got appraisals, but got
inspections
and, and was able to, give it to their guys. So I did the same. I kind of followed suit with them, but only did 1 property versus 3. So I got a house that I was about to wholesale to somebody, but for some reason they didn't like the house next door, so they backed out of the deal. And then so I took those same criteria. I already had the inspection report, and it was a deal I just threw to, like I said, the first hard money lender, and they was like, yeah, we'll take it. And then so we ended up getting the property. I went in, just painted it. That was it. I had my painter go in, paint it. I think I got it for 50, and ended up selling it for 80 within I think it was 22 days total.
Wow.
But it was based off of, I'm not doing full rehabs anymore. I'm only going to do maybe 1, 2, or 3 systems in the house, and that includes painting or HVAC or whatever it may be. I'm only doing 3, and then I'm going to go from there. But like you said, you start doing 1 or 2, so I did another one, same way. Made around the same amount of money. And then I got away from my criteria, and so now we're back to stage 1. I got 3 rehabs going. But a little bit more equipped to them, or we equipped for them right now because I got the inspection reports. I got, a team of people that's going to go in and do the right things to them. So it's kind of like a graduation, but following that original game plan, I'm only doing 1 at a time. Set the criteria up and follow the criteria. That's been the best thing that's worked for me.
Yeah, and you know what? I think another one I can think about is this is a midterm rental. This was the very first midterm rental that I bought, right? And it was this property. This was during the pandemic, and and it was this little bitty house. It's a small house. I think this house is a total of like 448 square feet. One bedroom, one bathroom, living room, kitchen, in a little laundry like nook. It's not even an area, it's a nook. And I drove down. No, actually, I think I saw this property online. And I was like, I'm gonna take a look at it because it was near where I live. And I walked in and I was like, this would be a good fit, for what I'm trying to do. And Marlon was like, don't buy it. Don't
Totally
buy
against
it.
it. I was totally against it.
And I was like, no. So I looked up the ordinances to see if I could if it could be a short-term rental, because at that time, midterm renting wasn't a phrase or, a term, I should say. That's relatively new. But I knew I wanted to host like traveling nurses, right? I was just calling it a short-term rental. So I looked to see if that was something I could do. I didn't see anything. And so I got this property. I called the agent who had it for sale, because that's the best way to get a property, right? Is to go to the agent who's listing the property so they can get double commission if you want to try to win the bids. Because at that time, people were outbidding, like it was just a bidding crazy war, right? So went straight to the seller's agent so she could be my agent. She can make her double commission. It was a cash offer. And I got the property. That has been my number one midterm rental, cash flowing midterm rental. That little bitty 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom house, the best one I've had as far as my cash flow is concerned with midterm renting. And of course, I still have it. I'm not getting rid of that.
Come on, come on.
Yes. So
Yeah, that goes
that
back to that exit strategy.
right.
I'm thinking exit strategy as far as buying it or renting it and all of that. So I'm looking at the price you pay for it versus, what other properties are looking at. And so, and when I'm thinking no, it's not based off the conversation that she's having about midterm rental, because I didn't know anything about midterm rentals at the time. All I'm thinking is regular rents, 1 bedroom. Who's gonna rent that for the old grandma or grandpa? I got my own preconceived notions behind it. But then when she said, this is what we're doing it for, these are the numbers that we're trying to get, then it made sense. As a wholesaler, I'm supposed to listen to that type of stuff. But at that time, I had my own preconceived notions like, nah, this ain't gonna work. But it's been one of her best assets to date.
Yep.
And it's based off the exit strategy.
Definitely. And that's something I've had to learn, having that exit strategy up front.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I deviated from my exit strategy, like for example, there's a rehab I'm working on now, and I originally bought it for a long-term rental, right? I was going to keep it, put a new tenant in there, whatever. Then I let the agent talk me into selling it, because she was like, well, you can make so much money off of it. And so I was like, okay, well, fine. I should have followed my first mind. I should have just kept it as a rental. It would have been cash flowing this whole time. And I'm pretty much kind of like in a similar situation as you, Michelle, where I've had this property over a year now, and I don't have a tenant, and it's still costing me money. I just now got somebody to put a contract on it, and fingers crossed that we're going to knock on wood, it closes in the next 30 days, because I am so tired of this property. I just don't even want to walk in there anymore. Like, that's how it is. And I'm just like, I just should have followed my first mind, kept it as a rental. I would have been cash flowing this whole entire time. But no, I just changed up my exit strategy, and that messed me all the way up. So now, oh well.
I think all of us forget about that intuition. We all have it. All our stories are like, but let's just try to, but like you said, it just your intuition and knowing that and learning. And then we always say, looking back, but like you went in with your intuition and knowing, and you did your due diligence and knowing that your plan. I think, when you look back at some of the properties, and I knew it on this one and on the one that I'm currently working on. So I have still opportunities there, but my intuition first in the beginning, but the entrepreneur in me says, you can do it. You can do it. It was too early in my career. Right. But now let's see what happens. Right. And I think intuition is the biggest thing. And then just the discouragement. Right. So now I personally don't deal with the contractors. I think the biggest lesson for me I have somebody else on my team that deals with them. And the reason for it is because the feeling I get. I put myself sometimes in their shoes when I used to be the contractor. And then I give them, that's when I start to be a little friendly. And that's when I start to give them leeway. So now I'm not the one that works with them, because then I get that emotional tie in there. And now I do quicker decisions. Before it was like, oh, let me just give them one more chance. Oh, they didn't show up. Oh, they didn't. And I make more quicker decisions. It's like, because time is money for all of us.
Yeah.
And I, from the gate, I'm like, I don't give money up front. You know my rules. This is what it is. You don't get any money up front. When you go work for a job, an 8 to 5, you don't get a paycheck in the beginning. And so it's hard. And again, coming from someone that was in it, so I try not to work with the contractors. No, I don't like it.
Yeah.
We all
You know what?
Me neither.
You're making a good point in that. I believe a lot of people can benefit from. I know, even listening to your testimonies here, I'm learning, because there was a book I read. It's called the not to guide to real estate. And what I like about that book is that it gets into, why are you doing it, and what is it that you want? Because often, like Dom, you were saying, you wanted to just buy the property because, hey, we're human beings. We're influenced by what we see, or whether it's social media, our friends. You hear somebody talking, and nowadays everybody is talking about what's going on here and there, and you get emotional. But when you start doing that thing, now there's one thing that you do have to get started. But once you get started, you want to keep asking yourself. And I like what you said, Michele and Kelly. You're saying, hey, I don't like this part of the business. It's just like, even in a corporate job, right? There's some things I don't like. So I'm not going to spend as much time doing that. I'm going to delegate all that stuff, because I would rather be doing something that I really like, and also where my gifts and talents are best leveraged. And that's another thing that, once you get into this, ask yourself periodically, what is it that I do enjoy? And am I thinking about it strategically? Is this what I want to do for the long term? What are the things that I like? What do I don't like? How do I create a team that I can leverage so that I don't have to do some of these things? But I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about. And then sometimes they get tainted and they said, oh, that real estate, it's garbage. It's just like hard money for me. I didn't know I had heard about hard money, but I didn't know I could play in that space. And now it's something that I really, really like. But it was about exploration and thinking and defining, what is it that you want?
Right.
What do you enjoy, and where do your talents and skills play best?
Yeah.
And that can always evolve and change, right? And that's the thing too, because like I had to be real with myself, and I am okay paying the Marlins of the world to go and do the acquisition side of it. I'm more now where I'm finding, and again, another story for a different day, but I found myself on the capital raising side. I like going to individuals and saying, Alejandro, we could put your money to work. This is my track record. This is what I've done. Let's go ahead and do strategically so you can continue to do that. And I had to be real with myself, because it was like, I don't want to be on, I can do acquisitions, but that's not my space. Same thing. We do midterm rentals. I have another partner that oversees that. I do not like doing the hospitality side of it. I'm a very being on the construction side, you do have to be very, very nice on the hospitality side. Like, you're getting upset because your towels weren't warm when you showed up. Like, I'm not dealing with that. So my mother deals with that. And one time she was on vacation and I had to take over the weekend for our properties. And I was like, I appreciate you. I think one of the things I didn't know when I first started is how many people you can collaborate with. And they don't necessarily have to be your business partner. They could be someone in the same venture, and you can be able to all work together and all be in your own space. So Marlins, my lenders, and, the title companies, getting into people that are like Dom in the multifamily. Hey, teach me how to underwrite, teach me how to good deal. I'll go find you the money, figuring out what your strengths are. And that's the cool thing, in my opinion, about real estate, is that we can all work together and all get a piece of the pie.
Yep. Yep.
That's a good topic for the next thing is the teams.
Yes.
How do you guys
Yes.
build your teams and things like that?
Yep. Yep. So Dominique, what about you? What has been your best deal after you established your buying criteria?
You know, as I approach the answer to this question, you know, in real estate, we get so tied up into like the numbers, right? Which is, you know, which deal is going to be like, you know, that home run, and which deal do I have in my portfolio that's like, you know, cash flowing the best. And as we jump into May, which is mental awareness month,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you really got to look at your deals and really understand out of all your deals and every deal that I've done, I go back to this 5 unit property. It provides me the most peace. Literally every single month, I have the least issues with this property. And I truly knew myself when I knew I was actually, you know, basically going to go and acquire this property, because I knew I wasn't going to find this huge value add project and rehab it, right? I knew I needed something turnkey as an out of state investor.
Mm-hmm.
And the 5 unit property, guys, like it had rents at $900 a door, and market rents were already at $1,200, $1,300, and then Section 8 rents were at 14. So I knew I could increase rents over $400 per door. It was already renovated turnkey, so all I had to do was really just wait for these leases to expire and really kind of just vet Section 8 tenants and kind of just change my strategy over from market to Section 8. So I ended up taking that rent roll from the time that I acquired it from 5,400 all the way up to 6,800 on a 5 unit, just by leveraging Section 8. And
Okay.
with that being said,
Wow.
it's great numbers on the deal, but again, I have to spin this all the way back to we have a lot of headaches in all the deals that we have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best deal for me is the one that provides me the most peace every single month, decent cash flow, but again, it truly helps me mentally, right? Because we have families, we have kids, we have work, right? You know what I'm saying? It's a lot going on with real estate in our personal lives, and you want an asset that's really not going to stress you out from a mental
Mm-hmm.
standpoint.
Oh yes. Peace of mind is number one. Like that's what I'm about right now. Like ease and flow. That is just it. That is like my motto for this year and years beyond. It's like, yeah, you don't want to have to deal with a lot of headaches. I even have a few, well, really one midterm rental where I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to renew because it's a rental arbitrage. I don't know if I'm going to renew this lease because I feel like I got to do too much work. You know, like this is too much work. It doesn't have a property manager. So I'm basically the property manager for the building because I'm rental arbitraging the entire building. So I'm the one that is pretty much making sure the grass is cut, that the filters are changed out. And if anything happens, they call me first and then I got to call the owner if it's something I can take care of. It's just like, woo, I don't know if I want to do this, but I was like, let me keep it another year because at this point I paid off like all of my debt that I had towards that. So this is strictly profit for me for this property. And this is year 2 that I am starting. So I was like, let me keep it one more year just to get this money, this cash flow going. And then next year we'll probably let it go. But the properties where I don't have as much of a headache, love them. I'll keep them all year. I don't care how much they raise the rent. As long as I'm making a profit, I'm going to keep them. Well, thank you guys for sharing your experiences with the audience as far as how important buying criteria is and what can happen when you don't have buying criteria and what can happen when you do. All right. So thank you guys once again. We're going to wrap up this after show and we'll be back with you next month with another after show. Bye.